Hello everyone! Thank you for watching my lecture video on Sibelius songs. Sibelius is famous for his orchestra works, but his songs are not as much well known. I was an exchange student at Sibelius Academy in Finland in 2009. At Sibelius Academy, I was introduced to Sibelius songs for the first time. Sibelius songs were standard vocal literature performed very often in Finland. I was struck by the fact that Sibelius was a prolific song composer, and I had not known or heard any of his songs before. I hope that this video will be a good introduction of his songs to you, especially if you're not familiar with his songs. John Sibelius was born on December 8, 1865, into a Finland-Swedish family in Hämeenlinna in the Russian Grand Duchy of Finland. The room you are watching is where Sibelius was born. He is considered as Finland's greatest composer who led Finnish nationalism during the nation's struggle for independence from Russia. For that reason, Sibelius is still the national heroic figure in Finland. While I was in Finland, I noticed many places were named after Sibelius to pay respect for his achievements. Now you're looking at Sibelius' house during his childhood. His father died when Sibelius was 2 years old and left substantial debts. He grew up at a time when Finland was fighting for independence from Russia. His family consciously decided to send Sibelius to an important Finnish language school. This was a part of the larger rise in Finland, Romantic nationalism. Romantic nationalism became a vital element in his artistic output and political leanings later on. These are the instruments belong to the Sibelius family. Sibelius did not start formal piano lessons until he was 9. He became famous as a violinist at the age of 15. However, he abandoned his aspirations with violin as developing his interest in composition. Sibelius joined law at Imperial Alexander University of Finland in 1885, but he soon quit studies to pursue his interest in music. John Sibelius married to Aino Jennefelt and fathered 6 daughters. The Sibelius family moved to their new home Ainola, named after his wife Aino on the lake Tuusulajärvenpää in 1904. He adored nature, especially Finnish landscapes, and composed many pieces inspired by nature's beauty. This is the picture of Ainola inside, which I have visited in 2009 and 2015. Sibelius and his wife Aino built Ainola in 1904. They moved back to Ainola in 1941 and stayed there until his death in 1957. Now, Ainola is a museum for tourists to visit. His best-known compositions include Finlandia, the Violin Concerto, and 7 symphonies. Sibelius composed prolifically until the mid-1920s, and the 7th Symphony is the pinnacle of his orchestra compositions. After completing his 7th Symphony, he failed to produce any major works in his last 30 years. And this sharp declining during his last 30 years is often referred as the silence of Järvenpää, the location of his home. He believed that he wouldn't be able to compose a symphony better than the 7th one. For several years, he worked on an 8th symphony secretively, but he destroyed the manuscripts of his work. Sibelius' orchestra works were influenced by Busoni and Tchaikovsky. His song Flickan kom från sin älsklingsmöte displays Tchaikovsky's influence on his compositional style. Sibelius is considered as the last greatest composer in the grand Beethoven symphonic tradition. Sibelius developed a technique called a pedal, which is a long sustained note underneath a simple harmonization for his orchestra works. This technique was often used in his songs as well. For example, his first song, Arioso, has a pedal throughout. However, his style does not serve well for a piano accompaniment but works really well with strings. Sibelius died of a brain hemorrhage at the age of 91 in 1957 in Ainola in his house. Still today, Sibelius is a Finnish national icon. Finns love Sibelius. They celebrate his birthday, play and promote his music frequently, build his statues all over the country, put his image on coin, name places after him, and in many other numerous ways. Sibelius is the patriotic symbol in Finland. Now let's move on to his songs. 94 out of 110 Sibelius songs were composed in Swedish. At this fact, we can help raising our eyebrows because Sibelius is known to us as the Finnish nationalist composer. There are a few important historic facts to learn in order to answer this question about the majority of Sibelius songs being written in Swedish. Finland belonged to Sweden for 6 centuries. Then Alexander I, Emperor of Russia, defeated Swedish troops in Finland in 1808 and declared Finland as an autonomous Grand Duchy of Russia. The Finnish language and the national awakening were developed under the Russian emperors as a part of colonial plan. Alexander II especially encouraged Finns to find their national identity, and the nation thrived under his throne. Even after Finland became Russia's Grand Duchy, there was a small group of Swedish immigrants still remained in Finland as an upper class. Ironically, Swedish people in Finland were the ones who developed the Finnish language, identity, and the national awakening. Before 1863, a couple of years before Sibelius was born, Swedish was the sole language used in administration, public institutions, education, and cultural life in Finland. In 1863, Finnish gained an official position in administration. However, it took another 30 years for it to be seen as equal to the official status of Swedish. Sibelius' family was Swedish-speaking upper class in Finland. Sibelius grew up speaking Swedish at home, and Swedish was his primary language throughout his life. Because the Swedish upper class in Finland laid the foundations of Finnish identity, the majority of the Finnish nationalist literatures were written in Swedish. Swedish speakers were a minority in Finland, however, their influence was great. Kimborg, a celebrated Finnish bass, explained in his article that Swedish was better established than Finnish as a literary form around Sibelius' time. Despite the fact that Sibelius was a prolific song composer and his songs deserve an international reputation, his songs have hardly been performed outside of Scandinavian countries. His songs were completely overshadowed by his orchestra works. Sibelius' songs still remain veiled in mystery, primarily because of the Swedish text used to create them. Sibelius developed his own idioms for his songwritings, which may sound unconventional to an audience who's accustomed to German lieder or French melodies. For songs by composers such as Wolf, Brahms, Debussy, or Fauré, words dominate over resulting music. However, Sibelius absorbed an overall impression of a given poem and expressed a broad atmosphere by employing repeated motifs and broad musical structures. Sibelius' characteristic vocal writing originated from his orchestra compositional style, especially that of his tone poems. The vast idea of a program creates an overall expression throughout the music without focusing on the importance of individual words in a poem. Valery Siren in the Sibelius Companion describes Sibelius' unique vocal writing. Quote, "In contrast to the usual techniques of word painting and musical coloring of feeling, Sibelius songs are plastic. The words, vocal line, and piano part fused to create a single impression. The relationship of the poem to the music in Sibelius' songs is quite different from the songs of other composers. Like his orchestra tone poems, the poem provides a program rather than a verses to be spoken. End quote. According to Santeri Levas, Sibelius' longtime secretary, Sibelius himself said, quote, "My songs can also be sung without words. They are not so dependent on words as the songs of many other composers." End quote. In some sense, Sibelius' vocal writing reminds listeners of Beethoven's. Both men were renowned symphonic composers, but they were not very sympathetic to the human voice when they composed the songs. Kimberg further explained in his article, quote, "Singers very often shake their heads at composers who do not seem to be aware of the limitations of the human voice. It is also quite possible that the composer's unorthodox writing horrifies many Orthodox souls, especially in the German-speaking world." End quote. Sibelius and Beethoven shared a common interest in vocal writing, using wide vocal ranges, angular vocal lines, bold intervals, and instrumental vocal writing. This compositional style intensifies the drama and emphasizes conflict with a full force. However, Sibelius' writing seems to work more cohesively on a bigger canvas, such as symphonies rather than songs. Later in the program, I will compare Beethoven's Die Ehre Gottes aus der Natur from 6 sacred songs and Sibelius' Arioso. Sibelius was closely associated with Finland's Swedish-speaking nobility and upper-class poets, many of which were active in the nationalist movement. Josef Julius Wexell and Johann Ludwig Runeberg were the Swedish-speaking nobilities who were leaders of Finnish cultural and political awakening movements. Sibelius used their poems heavily for his songs. The most famous Sibelius songs were written by Wexell and Runeberg. Rydberg and Fröding were not Swedish-speaking upper class in Finland, but Swedish poets from Sweden. Sibelius also used their poems quite a lot. Today, I would like to pay special attention to Johann Ludwig Runeberg. Runeberg was a patriotic poet who wrote The Tales of Ensign Stahl in Swedish. This book particularly constructed a Finnish identity and defined the lives of the Finns. In Finland, the people pay him much respect with statues, a museum, and a day in his honor. He wrote about the nature, the religion, and the patriotism in a highly romantic style. His poems were in short lines, simple words, and easy forms, which made his poems suitable for songs. Throughout his life, Sibelius was under Runeberg's strong influence for his compositions, especially his songs. Both Sibelius and Runeberg wrote their works in Swedish and identified themselves as Finns. Together with the work of Runeberg, Sibelius' music is synonymous with Finnish national identity. The first selection of Sibelius songs is Säf Säf Susa. The poem is by Gustaf Fröding, a Swedish poet from Sweden. So the poem is written in Swedish. It is quasi-recitative in style, one of Sibelius' pillar characteristic for his songs. Sibelius was genius at composing songs with dramatic stories, and this song is a perfect example. In this poem, a girl named Ingalill committed suicide because her friends were jealous of her youth, wealth, beauty, and her young lover. The story of Ingalill reminded me of a poem by an American poet, Annabel Lee, by Edgar Allan Poe. I prepared a video of Annabel Lee for you to compare to Säf Säf Susa. This video will help you understand about the story of Ingalill.
Edgar Allan Poe, Annabel Lee. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know, by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee. With a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kingsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
This is the middle section of Sibelius. What you're looking at is the voice part in quasi-recitative style while the piano accompaniment plays tremolo. However, this recitative is different from the typical Italian recitativo, which gives more speaking quality. Sibelius' quasi-recitative style is more melodic and more singing than speaking. The next two slides are the translation of Sibelius. Let me read the translation for you. Sigh rushes sigh, beat waves beat. Are you trying to reveal the fate of young Ingalil? He cried like a winged duck as she sank in the lake last spring when then was at its greenest. They were envious of her in Östanolid, and she took it to heart. They begrudged her riches and her young love. They pierced a jewel with a thorn. They cast dirt in a lily's dew. So sing your dirge, sad wavelets. Sigh rushes sigh, beat waves beat. Now I'm going to play the video of my performance at Penn State University. Dr. Bradley Baker is on the piano in this video. The second selection is Arioso. Arioso is the first song Sibelius composed. The poem was written by Johann Ludwig Runeberg in Swedish. This piece displays Sibelius' instrumental approach to vocal writing, which is very similar to Beethoven's songwriting style. So we will compare Sibelius' Arioso to Beethoven's Die Ehre Gottes aus der Natur for your better understanding about this subject. Both songs have very similar characteristics in terms of wide vocal ranges, angular vocal lines, bold intervals, and instrumental vocal writing. Let's look at Beethoven's Die Ehre Gottes aus der Natur first. You can see the melody in this song is very angular and has wild leaps, especially at the beginning and the end. Instead of providing vocal lines with lyricism, Beethoven treated the voice part as if it is a part of the chord progressions on piano. This piece would work better with strings because the piano cannot sustain sounds as continuously as string instruments can. As we can listen to the recording sung by Jesse Norman, you will be able to hear how Beethoven's vocal writing is somewhat unkind to a human voice. One of Sibelius' most significant attributes for orchestra writing, a pedal point is appearing consistently throughout Arioso. He composed the Arioso for voice and piano initially and then orchestrated a few years later. Because of the pedal notes, it works much better with an orchestra. Like Beethoven, Sibelius also wrote a very dry melody and treated the voice as if it is a part of the chord progression on piano. From this slide, you can see that the voice line has the 16th leap from A5 to D sharp 4. This kind of interval is very unusual for vocal writing. Sibelius was also unkind to the human voice, at least in Arioso. This is the end of Arioso. The song finishes very suddenly like many other songs by Sibelius. This gives unsettling feeling for listeners at times. Now let me read the translation for you. One winter morning, the girl walked in the frost-strewn grove, saw a withered rose and said, "Do not lament, poor flower, that your hour is over. You have lied, you have delighted, you have possessed your joyous spring before the winter cold reaches you. My heart suffers a worse fate. It holds spring and winter at once. My lover's eyes are its spring day. My mother's are its winter." Our third selection is Vardet and Dröm. I was extremely attracted to this song when I first heard it at Sibelius Academy. The beauty of this song fascinated me and led me to more Sibelius songs thereafter. The poem is written by Wexell in Swedish. The majority of his songs are about nature, but this song is one of the few love songs Sibelius composed. This is the first page of Vardet and Dröm. It shows that the song acts as a perfect example of Sibelius' songwriting style of music expressing an overall atmosphere without being bound to individual words. Piano accompaniment repeats the same motive, such as an endless arpeggio and a 4-against-3 structures to create an overall dreamy mood. Let me read the translation of the song for you. Did I just dream? Did I just dream that long ago I was your soulmate? I remember it like a song that is over though the string still vibrates. I remember a rose you gave me, a glance so shy and tender, a tear that glistened at parting. Was all this just a dream? A dream as brief as an anemone's life in a green spring meadow, whose beauty quickly fades before the wealth of new flowers. But many a night I hear a voice over a flood of bitter tears. Hide this memory deep in your breast. It was the best dream you ever had. Our third selection is illale. Illale is a Finnish word which means to evening. The poet is Ave Forsman Koskimies, and his wife's name was also Illale. The poem can be about an evening, but my guess is that the poet was talking about his wife in this song. Sibelius composed his songs mostly in Swedish. This song is one of the 8 Finnish songs Sibelius composed. Sibelius was very sensitive to the setting of Finnish language, which sounds monotonous. As a result, he wrote repeated notes to imitate the inflection of the language. He wrote 73 E-flat 5s and 13 F5s, a total number of 86 transitional notes of chest to head. It is an excessive number of transitional notes for one song. This is a great example that Sibelius did not quite understand or was unsympathetic to the human voice. In the next two slides, I laid out verses so you can see the rhyming pattern of the poem. The poet carefully placed the rhymes to match. Considering Finnish had not yet developed as a literary form, the poet did a good job with placing beautiful rhythms and rhymes to it. Now, let me read the translation to you before you listen to the song. To evening. Welcome, dark, mild, and starry evening. Your gentle fervor I adore and caress the dark tresses that flutter round your brow. If only you were the magic bridge that would wrap my soul away to the land of idols, though I waver and my wings are earthbound. And if I myself were the happy day that, overcome with weariness, might join you when the work is over and duty done. When night unfolds its black wings and a gray curtain falls over hill and dale, evening, how I would hurry to you. What a wonderful poem. Now let's watch the video of Ilale. Sibelius used the word painting technique in this song. Out of all Sibelius songs, this work is the most closely aligned to the German later style. It consists of two contrasting sections which perfectly match with two contrasting musical sections. The first section is a statement how quickly spring flies by while winter lingers longer. The second section is a reaction of a boy who will enjoy the time spent with his girlfriend no matter what the season is. The poem is written by Johann Ludwig Runeberg in Swedish. Runeberg's writing style was short lines, simple words, and easy forms. And this song is a very good example of his writing style. Let's read the translation before listening to the song. Spring flees fast. Spring flees fast, summer even faster. Autumn lingers long, winter even longer. Soon, fair cheeks, will you fade and bloom no more? The boy replied, even on autumn days, spring's memories bring joy. Even on winter day, summer's harvest is in store. Let spring flee and cheeks fade. Now we shall just love, we shall just kiss. Very simple lines and words, right? Now let me sing for you, Våren flykta hastigt. This is one of Sibelius' best-known songs. The poem was written by Runeberg. Again, Sibelius' preference for intensive tragedy is obvious in this song, and he intensified the drama with powerful musical tools such as octaves, syncopations, dense texture in the piano accompaniment, and shifts between major and minor keys. There are two characters in this song, a mother and a daughter. The daughter tells a lie to her mother about her secretive meetings with her lover, and the key is in D-flat major. Later, the daughter finally tells the truth to her mother about what truly happened to her, and the key becomes C-sharp minor. Sibelius reinforced the plot so appropriately by shifting the keys. You are looking at the piano introduction of the song. You will hear from the following recording that it is the reminiscent of Tchaikovsky. The theme repeats throughout the song and becomes an emotional statement of the daughter. Again, I will read the translation for you before you listen to the song. The girl returned from meeting her lover. The girl returned from meeting her lover, came back with red hands. Her mother asked, "Why are your hands so red, my child?" The girl replied, "I have been plucking roses and pricked my hands on the thorns." Again, she returned from meeting her lover, came back with red lips. Her mother asked, "Why are your lips so red, my child?" The girl replied, "I have been eating raspberries and stained my lips with the juice." Again, she returned from meeting her lover, came back with pale cheeks. Her mother asked, "Why are your cheeks so pale, my child?" The girl replied, "Prepare a grave, mother, hide me there and set up a cross, and on the cross carve these words." Once she came home with red hands, for they had turned red between her lover's hands. Once she came home with red lips, for they had turned red beneath her lover's lips. The last time she came home with pale cheeks, for they had turned pale at her lover's unfaithfulness. Sibelius songs being written mostly in Swedish and with orchestra writing style prevented his songs from being widely performed outside of Scandinavian countries. However, these characteristics made Sibelius songs very unique from the standard song literature. Even with unconventional and challenging writing styles, Sibelius created beautiful melodies and intensive dramas still attractive to performers and audience. Through my research on Sibelius songs, I have found his genius orchestra writings are still valid in his songs, even with some challenges in singing. Therefore, his songs need to be reevaluated for their quality and deserve more frequent performances and studies. I hope this video contains helpful information about Sibelius songs. Thank you very much for watching this video. Bye.